To call the meeting to order, ask that everybody please mute your cell phones or other electronic devices, and I will ask Rob to do a roll call for attendance.
Trustee Dahlman.
Here.
Trustee Swerk.
Here.
Trustee Dearborn.
Here.
Trustee Handler.
Here.
Trustee Kripe.
Here.
Trustee Apatow.
Here.
President Ritz.
Here. Trustee Apatow has provided the required notice that he is unable to attend tonight's meeting due to work obligations. Our rules provide that Trustee Apatow may participate remotely unless 2/3 of the board objects. Is there any objection? Hearing none, Trustee Apatow may now participate remotely fully in the meeting, and the minutes should so reflect. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Trustee Swerk has agreed to lead us this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Still got it.
Still.
Thank you. All right, Rob, would you like to do a quorum check?
Yes. First one up is at the end of this month, the January 31st special meeting that we had spoken about the last study session. Is that going to work for everybody?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm able to make it.
That'll work? Okay. And then the February meetings, the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. Are there any conflicts?
I may not be here for the 21st.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
All right, the next item is public comment. This is the time of the evening where anyone in the public can address Village Council on any item that is not on the agenda. So if you'd like to share your thoughts with us, you're welcome to come on up to the microphone and tell us what you're thinking. If this is for one Winnetka, you gotta wait till later.
No, this is for a completely different subject.
Okay.
I'm John Phelan, live at 711 Oak Street. I'm the president of the board over there. I'd just like to thank the village for decorating the bridges over the trains. Looking out our windows, that's a very nice scene in the wintertime. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I like this public.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. We'll move forward with reports. First is trustees. Andy, any report?
No report.
Kim?
No report.
Bob?
No report.
John?
No report.
Tina?
No report.
Village attorney?
No report tonight.
Village manager?
Yes, briefly, we've been haranguing Metra and the UP regarding the Hubbard Woods station improvements, and we received word actually on Saturday that the permits that Metra was waiting on from UP for the utility relocation have been approved, and we would expect submittals probably within the next 30 to 40 days.
Oh, great.
So then it's got to go through our entitlement process, and hopefully then we'd be able to go.
Wow, awesome.
Didn't we start talking about that like in my first year as a trustee, 8
I
years
think a
ago?
little before that.
Even
That's
before
really-
that.
Yeah,
It's been a journey.
that's great.
We're not there yet. Okay, village president, I have no report tonight. Okay, item 6 is approval of the agenda. I would like to remove one item from the agenda, and that would be item number 7. Help me out here, Rob.
The J on the consent agenda,
7J on the consent agenda,
R17, 2023.
R17, 2023. So, with that removed, does any trustee wish to remove any other items on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Item 7 is the consent agenda. I'll ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the, approval of the warrant list dated December 16, 2022 through December 30th, 2022, and December 31st, 2022 through January 12th, 2023 in the amount of $2,612,727.49. Ordinance number MC 01-2023, sign code amendments for adoption. Ordinance number M01-2023, authorizing disposition of surplus personal property owned by the Village of Winnetka. Resolution number R03-2023, Sixth Amendment to a license agreement with Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. Resolution number R06-2023, rejecting all bids, waiving bidding requirements, and awarding a contract to Asplin Tree Expert Company for utility line clearance services. Resolution number R10-2023, approving a change order number 3 to the contract with Maple Construction Incorporated for directional boring work. Resolution number R11-2023, approving a contract with American Combustion Services Incorporated for brickwork repairs to boiler number 5. Resolution number R12-2023, rejecting bids, waiving bidding requirements, and awarding a contract to WEG Transformers USA LLC for a 750 kVA pad mount transformer. Resolution number R16-2023, Executime software purchase.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Handler.
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
yes,
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next item of business will be resolution number R17-2023, the Winnetka Music Fest license agreement, which is up for adoption. Do I have any discussion on that item? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
No.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
yes,
Trustee Handler.
I have to recuse myself from this
Okay.
vote.
And it carries.
Motion still carries.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, thank you. All right, moving on to item 8, ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number M03-2023, 1303 to 1311 Scott subdivision and variation. This is up for introduction and possible adoption. Council will consider approving a final plat of subdivision and a zoning variation. Community Development, David Schoen is here to review.
I'll make this very brief. You received 2 recommendations, one from the Plan Commission and one from the Zoning Board of Appeals, unanimously, each recommending approval. The request is basically 2 property owners would like to adjust the lot line between 2 lots to make the one lot larger. That's the 1311 Scott parcel larger, and then the 1303 would become smaller. There are no planned improvements for the 1311 Scott parcel. The home would remain. The 1303 parcel, the house would be demolished and a new home would be built on it. If there is a variation necessary because with this new lot, for the 1311 parcel where the existing home is staying, because the lot has gotten wider, the setback requirement has gotten a foot wider on the west, and the home will not comply with that. It's not because there's any changes to that home, it's just because the lot and our zoning requirements require an additional foot for setback, thus the need for the variation. So that's a quick summary of the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Questions for David?
No question.
I have one. The petitioner, I guess is the developer, correct? DSW or something like that?
It's a joint application with both property owners. The homeowner of 1311 Scott is here tonight representing both parties.
Okay. The only question I had is, I was curious if this was the same group that was before us previously on a zoning request on an additional, if you remember, it was over on Scott Street, actually.
Yeah, a garage that was gonna be put sideways.
It was something
Yeah,
like
see, I
that.
thought so too, that this
Yeah, I
had
mean,
been before us
it seemed
before.
like,
Oh, it was,
is that yours?
I think it was my house, yes, we moved the garage.
That was it?
yeah.
We're not the developer, we're just the homeowner.
Okay. I knew there was something over there that I remembered, so, okay. That's my only question.
Okay.
Thanks. And thank you for the answer. All right, would anybody from the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up. Any comments or discussion?
Chris, I think you have someone.
Oh, I'm sorry, come on up.
Sorry, I just thought I would, since I'm here, say hello. I'm Kristen Goodfellow, and we're working with the developer that purchased the land next door. My husband and I and our children have lived at 1311 Scott since, well, for 7 years now. And we've been here before because we intend to make this our forever home, and we take every opportunity we can get to improve it and keep the character of our 1929 home, but improve it so that we can live here forever. And the impetus behind this is the developer purchased the lot next door, and either way, he's planning to tear down the home that's there now, which we're in favor of. But and he has agreed to sell us 20 feet of their lot to make the lots a similar size and just to expand our. It's pretty tight in our little neck of the woods there, and we'd like a little more space. So that's the long and the short of it. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything.
You have any questions for the applicant?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you,
We're good to-
everyone.
We're good to go here. Okay, since there's no discussion, how about waiving intro? Does anybody,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
okay, do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M03-2023?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That carries. Okay, secondly, may I have an adoption, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M03-2023?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Apitoff?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you, and good luck with your future plans.
Thank you so much.
Great. All right, next item is resolution number R13-2023, approving a contract with Independent Mechanical Industries, Inc., for tube installation and boiler casing replacement in boiler number 8. After a mechanical failure that occurred in August of 2022, village staff is recommending a repair of boiler number 8 at the electric plant. Water and Electric Director Brian Keys is here to review.
Good evening, thanks for the introduction. As always, you kind of stole my my prepared materials.
Sorry.
So no, I'm before you tonight for your consideration of a contract to repair boiler number 8. It's the largest of 4 boilers at the plant since manufactured in 1964. It produces also the most steam with 125,000 pounds an hour. In August, we had a tube failure. It was located in the outer wall. So under the procurement authority of the village manager last fall, we entered into contracts for asbestos abatement and to open up the side of the boiler to get to the damaged area. We were hoping to have the repairs completed last year on the previous 2022 budget because of the difficulty in getting to the area and then getting proposals. It's run into our 2023 plan. After we got the boiler opened up, we've determined that there's actually 5 tubes that are damaged in addition to what they call the boiler casing. We contacted some companies that have done boiler work for us before with the understanding that any proposal that the work would have to be buttoned up and ready to run by May 1st. That's the start of our generating season. Only one company provided a proposal, that's Independent Mechanical. They've done several projects for the village at the power plant. Their proposal is an amount of $59,400. They've located a company that can do the fabrication of the tubes, so they're going to purchase the required boiler tubes, send them out of state to be what they call swedged or machined, and then they'll come back and install them in the boiler, which is approximately another 3 weeks of work. Again, as I mentioned, this was an unplanned project for 2023, so there's not a line item in the 23 budget. We have $50,000 allocated for tube repair in the 2023 budget. The balance of $9,400 is in the electric plant operating account, and contract you approved on the consent agenda came in under the allocated amount, so we have some headspace in the budget. So at this point in time, it should not have an impact on the electric plant's budget adherence. And with that, we can seek your approval to move forward with the repairs of the boiler number 8.
Great. Any questions for Brian? Boy, you guys are quiet tonight. Rob, any questions?
Seems like a must-do.
No, I'm good.
He's good, all right. I'll open it up for public comment. Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this item this evening? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up. and I guess I'll just ask for a motion. Can I have a motion to adopt resolution number R13, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Kreip?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
All right,
Thank
that motion carries. Thanks, Brian. I hope
Thank
you
you,
had a
Brian.
good dinner. Had to stick around for that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item, we're on to item 9, which is old business, and we have One Winnetka Revised Plan Development Concept Plan Review. The applicant is here to present the amended 4-story mixed-use plan development, also known as the One Winnetka site. Community Development Director David Schoen will review and introduce the applicant.
Good evening. So I'd like to briefly remind everyone present this evening that the concept plan review is one of 3 steps in our plan development process. The concept plan review step provides an applicant the opportunity to present their idea to the council and to get individual feedback from council members. There will be no vote this evening. Nothing that is said is binding on any future decision. It just provides the applicant an opportunity to hear thoughts from the council. Should the applicant decide to move forward after this evening, then the next step would be the preliminary plan review process, by which we would notice the public hearings before both the Plan Development Commission and the Design Review Board, and then bring their recommendations to you on the proposed plan. I think we're all familiar with the site over on the southeast corner of Lincoln and Elm. It's zoned for mixed-use development, which the proposal is for this evening. The proposal will consist of residential rental units, ground floor commercial, and on-site parking, both at grade and some subsurface. What's new this evening is the applicant has the former Connie's Pharmacy site under contract and is incorporating it, as well as the Phototronics building, into their redevelopment plans this time. So the zoning relief is the same as what was necessary for the concept plan that was presented last October. So there need to be a plat of consolidation, and as we discussed last time, because of our subdivision regulations, there would need to be a variation for the rear yard because it would abut a side yard. There would need to be exceptions from the zoning code in terms of height of the structure. The maximum height allowed in this area of the C2 district is 45 feet, and they're proposing 52 feet 6 inches to the top of the parapet. Also, the code requires that on the 4th story of this 4-story structure, that the building be set back at that 4th story 10 feet from the front property line, and there's portions along Lincoln Avenue that will not do that. And additional relief will be front yard and rear yard setback exceptions. I'm sorry, Kristen, I can't see. Are we on slide 9? Slide 9.
Whoop.
Okay, so on slide 9, you'll see they'll need front yard variations along Lincoln because the code requires the property or the building to be at the property line or no more than 3 feet from the property line, and there's instances along Lincoln that it will be set back more than 3 feet. Also on the east property line, which is the rear property line in this instance, they'll need a setback exception for the building because the code requires that it be at least 10 feet, and they're proposing something less than 10 feet. And then as shown on this image on slide 9, the ground floor parking requires special use approval. in terms of, next slide, on slide 10, the district does not require a side yard setback, but when a side yard is provided, it must be at least 3 feet and along the south property line, and in areas the setback is not 3 feet or greater. And then also along Elm Street, they're proposing some building elements, limited elements that will project over the right-of-way that would require a license agreement with the village. And then on slide 11, the applicant is still considering the potential for leasing ground floor to financial office uses and medical office uses. Both of those uses in the overlay district require special use permit approval. So in the future, those uses would need that approval in order to locate there. So again, as with the previous project, the applicant is interested in the council's thoughts on those uses going in on the ground floor along both streets. The code requires compensating benefits as part of a planned development, and the applicant has identified those as part of their project to be streetscape improvements along Elm and Lincoln, as well as the provision of on-site parking for commercial uses. Then on slide 13 is a summary of the relief that would be necessary for the project. Again, when they submit for preliminary plan approval, if some other exceptions come up, we would notice those as part of the formal process, or if we would identify additional needs for exceptions. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point or after the applicant has been given an opportunity to summarize their project.
Questions for Brian?
Oh, I
Go
have
ahead.
one. David, please remind me, this building has a few balconies / terraces that are recessed that are right at the building facade. I don't think we have a lot of those around town. Who is responsible or has the authority to determine what can go on those relative to grills, decorative items, furniture, etc.? Because I'm thinking people are walking right along the sidewalk there and we'll see them quite clearly.
Sure. Generally, the village does not have any
So it
specific
would be the
regulations
building owner
regarding
to-
that. It would be the building owner.
Okay.
Unless, as part of your approval of the planned development, decide to place limitations on those outdoor spaces in terms of what could be stored out there.
Okay, thank you.
Good grab. Others?
David, on the special uses, ultimately, even though we know medical and financial services, ultimately the lessee would apply for the special use permit. Is that right?
Yes, our special uses go to the user of the space.
Right.
With the concurrence or the approval of the property owner to submit the request.
So maybe the applicant will, again, let us know a little bit on what type of business might be going in to those locations.
Sure.
Others? What's this, David, what's this license agreement along Elm? Could you remind me again?
It's, there are elements,
Oh, is this where it's overhanging the,
yeah,
okay,
just
never
a
mind.
little, yeah.
Okay, yeah, air rights, okay. That's what I thought. All right, I guess we can turn it over to the applicant then.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name's John Murphy with Murphy Development Group. I'm the sponsor and developer for the project. I have with me John Talty with OKW Architects. We've been working on the submittal that's being presented tonight and would encourage any questions you have at will.
Thanks for having us back. You guys are very welcoming. Year 16 for me. Before we get into the specificity of, kind of a page turn of all this, I think it's important to know that what's changed from our perspective, from your perspective, from the deal's perspective since we last got together. And I'm just going to run through a series of bullet points to kind of give you a little clarity as to how this project continues to evolve. So as David said, since the last time, Connie's is now part of the deal, which I think fundamentally makes us a much better, much cleaner, and ultimately a much more successful real estate development for both the applicant, the architect, and the village, because I think it helps to solve a lot of head-scratching architectural issues and planning issues that we might have had. So we're very thankful that that's now part of the program. Another thing that's changed, thanks to Trustee Dahlman's comments at our last meeting, we took the vehicular access to the public parking, which is at grade, if everyone remembers, and it's roofed because there's a courtyard above. We took the access of that off of Elm Street and we swung it around. Now it's off of Lincoln. So the procession of Lincoln includes access down to the lower level parking, and then and then you have the residential lobby along Lincoln, and then on the north side of the lobby you now have access, two-way access into the 38 parking spaces, which are part and parcel of the development, which are public parking spots. The residential area in the building, because of the assumption of Connie's, the residential area has grown by a little over 14,800 square feet. We've gone from 48 to 59 units since you last saw the plan, so we have 11 more units. The unit growth is born of both the bigger footprint of the building because of Connie's and a smaller average unit size than we showed you last time. The average units in the package that you have today are a little over 1,450 square feet, plus or minus. I have to look at my notes. So 1426, I'm sorry. So the average unit size in the 59 units is 1426. We had 48 units that were bigger, more than 150 feet bigger per unit in the last proposal. The commercial area on the ground floor has grown by 2,136 square feet. So with absorbing Connie's, we now have more commercial space. We have better commercial space because it faces not only Elm, but also kind of addresses the corner of Lincoln and Elm and then turns the corner along Lincoln to the south. From a parking perspective, the at-grade parking area within the context of the building, we lost one car. We're down from 39 to 38, I believe. The private parking in the lower level for the units themselves, we gained 2. So we're up 2 downstairs, we're -1 at grade. But I would also acknowledge the fact that because we swung that parking off of, or the access drive off of Elm over to Lincoln, we had, in doing, with having that driveway on Elm Street, we were gonna lose 4 or 5 parking spots that existed there. Those are now back in play and they remain. So it's a gain for what I would consider usable, functioning parking for the community at large. The height of the building remains the same. And then lastly, I want council to know that last Friday I had a cup of coffee with Mr. Petrick and Mr. Phelan from 711 Oak. We sat down and went through this package, and I kind of explained to them all the things that were changing as a function of that. And I think it's important for the community to know that we're, neighbors are kind of meeting neighbors, and we're working through all this collectively, because the only way for it to ultimately be successful is to make sure that they're satisfied with the direction we're heading, as well as all of you. So that being said, I'm happy to walk through these slides and explain to you a little bit about what I just spoke of, I would ask everybody to look at page 5 in their package, which represents the ground floor commercial and the parking layout. So as you can see, we maintain the pedestrian access point. It's page 5 of the OKW package, Rob, if you're looking for it.
It's on the screen.
Oh, I see, it's on the screen.
Oh, it's on the screen as well. So thank you very much. So we've maintained access to Elm Street from that parking, that internal parking, but now it's a pedestrian way, not a vehicular way, dumping out into the sidewalk. And the vehicular access, as you can see, is now swung around to kind of mid-site on Lincoln Avenue. And that access point to that parking is also access for loading, trash removal, things like that, which are all internal to the site. None of that is going to be external to the building envelope. So we think it's going to be a very effective and efficient way to kind of move traffic in and out of the property. The residential lobby is evolving from an architectural perspective and a planning perspective. We're taking now things into consideration such as mail and packages, and we're programming this as John and his team further kind of refine what it is we're doing. We're trying to make sure that we're addressing all the things necessary to be addressed in what will be a luxury, rental property. So the residential lobby is evolving in that regard, and the architecture, the planning of it is starting to reflect some of it. And then at the southernmost point of the property itself is the ramp down, where the ramp currently exists to get to the lower level parking. The next page reflects that lower level parking that we spoke of. 118 spaces with 59 units. It's 2 cars per unit, and so and will remain such. One thing I wanted to touch on too, relative to the first floor. If you go back, I apologize. The commercial parking spot that we've identified with 38 cars. We anticipate that meeting code, which is 2 cars per 1,000 square feet. We have a little over 20,000, almost 21,000 square feet of commercial space. However, at least 15% of that commercial space we can identify as back of house kind of storage, things like that are not relevant, leasable, or in terms of habitable retail or office or whatever. So if we remove 15% from that 21,000 square feet of commercial, we have more than 2 cars per 1,000 of usable, what we'll call usable commercial space. And this is outlined in your ordinance here locally as well. So we're comfortable and confident that that parking is meaningful to what it is we're doing. So we spoke of the lower level on page 6. And page 7, again, you start to see on page 7, 8, and 9, we have levels 2, 3, and 4 of our residential component of this. And in the 59 units that we're anticipating today, 19 of them sit on level 2, 21 on level 3, and 19 again on level 4. The units consist of 1 bedrooms plus den, and when I say a 1 bedroom plus den, that's almost 1,100, some of them larger, 1,100 square foot unit. We have 2 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms plus den. So that's the unit mix that we're anticipating. There are no 1 bedrooms, there are no studios. These are large, comfortable units, with the smallest being over 1,000 square feet and the largest being 2,000 square feet. So you can see the unit layout and how the building is adjusting to the site and how it's pulling back, in that wedding cake kind of strategy that the village adheres to and that our architecture is reflective of. So we're very cognizant of kind of the moving of that building kind of away from the streetscape to dampen the mass of it and kind of supplement the architecture and make it a more interesting building, to be perfectly honest with you. Slide 10 is a simple section across Elm Street, which demonstrates our neighbors to the north across the street and the context of this building and the scale of that building. You've seen that same exhibit before. The stacking diagrams, the axonometrics that are on page 11 are also reflective of that massing as we turn this building around and we start to look at it from a variety of viewpoints. Again, with the notion that we're cognizant of breaking down the mass of the building, creating habitable outdoor spaces. I think the question of what goes on in the balconies is a really good one, actually, and it's something we need to think about, because it is not our intent for it to be bike storage and 30-year-old Weber grills and the like, right?
Beach towels and, yeah.
Correct. That is not the spirit of what this development is all about. So as we further define the building and its use and the kind of the qualities of it, that will be folded into all this, and that conversation will be had. Page 12 represents, again, some sections through the site to show how the courtyard functions, the spacing of the courtyard within the two wings of the apartments themselves, and the setbacks along the way, again emphasizing outdoor spaces when possible. And then finally we get into slides 13, 14, and 15, which begin to look three-dimensionally at this building in a little different way. The last time we were together, you saw the Elm Street view that's shown on page 13. It included Connie's, but now here is the building kind of extruded further to the west, absorbing that Connie site and beginning to address what is the corner, a very important corner in town of Elm and Lincoln. And so we want to be careful as we develop this architecture. We want to be sensitive to the length of the building along Elm Street. We want to be, it's I think darn near 200 feet long. And so given that, we want to be careful how we break that down architecturally. We don't want it to be a one-liner. We don't want it to be one contiguous expression of architecture or materials or roof form. So this begins to show how we're breaking some of that up, whether it be with recessed balconies, whether it be with dormers that are part of the living space of the unit on the third floor, whether it's a recessed fourth floor up top with large terraces around it, whether it's simply the color and the material of the exterior of the building. We have brick, we have stucco, we have stone, both smooth and rusticated, trying to enliven the building facade itself and trying to make it look like a series of expressions rather than, again, a single thing. Page 14 starts to look at the corner, the kind of the money shot at Lincoln and Elm Street. The gables that we've created there, flanking the two gables that flank the residences between, is kind of an homage to Hoffman's building across the street. They have a very similar, the architecture's different, it's a little bit more historic, let's call it, in terms of its Tudor expression, but it's that same kind of roof form where it's very comfortable. I think this will be a very comfortable complement to what's happening to the north and the buildings and the buildings in the context of this project. Sheet 15 takes you further down Lincoln, and it begins to demonstrate the portion of the building at the right hand of this rendering represents the entrances to the residences, which again are flanked by the vehicular access. You see the automobile coming out of the building there from the grade parking, and then the resident parking further to the south. In the conversation with Mr. Petrick and Mr. Phelan on Friday, they weren't quite sure like how the building was reacting they thought the building was terminated at that right edge of that rendering right there, when in fact the building kind of dives behind it. It led us to adding a kind of a massing exhibit on page 18, which shows how our building is trying to react to the 7-Eleven building and pull itself away in form to lessen the impact of those neighbors that have northernmost units at that portion of the 7-Eleven building. The renderings, the elevations on page 16 begin to tell a story too about our grade change. The last time we were together, we spoke about a building that's 52 feet 6 inches tall to the top of the parapet. As we all know, the southwest corner of the site is the high point, and the northeast corner of the site is the low point. The southwest corner of the site sits 9 inches above the finished floor of the building, and at the northeast corner of the site, the grade is 3 feet 4 inches below the floor. So there's a delta of 4 feet 1 inches as we go around this building. From the southwest corner to the northeast corner, the site drops 4 feet 1 inch. So we have a building height, which is from the grade, or from the finished floor to the parapet of at one end of 51 feet 9 inches, I'm sorry, structure height. The building height is from the finished floor. The structure height at the southwest corner is 51 feet 9 inches. At the northeast corner, it's 55 feet 10 inches because the grade is falling away from it. So we just want to get that out as part of the conversation here. The building height, the parapet remains the same, the grade's falling away from it. So there's a delta of 51 feet 9 to 55 feet 10, 4 feet 1 inches overall of building height and expression on the east end that's not at the southwest corner. So we're working with that, and we're trying to dampen that as best we can, but it's a reality of the property. Finally, on page 17, we're beginning to start to look a little bit more in detail at the portal along Elm Street and the access point to the parking beyond. We want to be very sensitive how we create that access point, because it wants to be welcoming, it wants to be bright, it wants to be well designed. That space does not want to be the tunnel underneath the tracks from the west side of west side of Green Bay to the east side of Green Bay. This is not a place for graffiti and for kids to hang out. This is an elegant part of an elegant building. So how we detail the inside of that pedestrian walkway remains to be seen. We're going to get to that, but we're sensitive to it, and we want to make sure that it's a comfortable place for our kids and our moms and dads and everybody else to walk through, to get to their cars beyond. And finally, the residences over on Lincoln. The strategy of these two building elements is somewhat similar. We're taking the fourth floor, we're taking the palette of the fourth floor, a darkened palette which recedes, which we want we want to lessen the impact of that floor, and we take that and we waterfall it down the face of the building into a different kind of expression. You know, Chris, when we were here last time, we spoke of Tudor architecture, right? And you, by your own admission, says, not really a great fan of it, and nor am I. If it's done really, really well, historically well, it's an exceptional building style, but it's a very hard thing to replicate. And our intention with this building is not to just replicate something that lives somewhere else, but to take lessons learned from that in proportion, scale, materiality, things like that, and apply it in a more modern way, in a more effective way, in a more way of the time. And so we're doing that with the introduction of a couple of pieces of architecture, both at the entrance for the residences and at the mid-block on Elm Street, to kind of break up some of that architecture and massing and language and introduce something that's elegant and a little bit different. So that's part of where the design process is going right now. We have a long way to go. We recognize that. We're looking forward to the design review board conversations and the meetings that lie ahead, if you guys are willing to bless all this. But that kind of brings you up to speed on where we are. So we're happy to take any questions that you might have. I'm sure you have plenty. But that's the latest and greatest for One Winnetka.
Thanks, John and John. All right, does anybody have any questions for the applicant before we dive into our individual comments? Go ahead, Tina.
Thanks, you guys are really, is this on? Yes.
Red is off.
Red is off. Oh, that's on.
Red is dead.
Okay, there we go. It'll only take me a year to figure that out. Thank you so much for, I think this works really well. I'm thinking, that after hours, 38 space parking will also help with maybe some of the restaurant uses, and it just creates a nice connection. So really appreciate the hard design work that's gone into that. Just a couple thoughts, kind of questions on and I appreciate each one of these is a 1-bedroom plus den. I'm assuming you're doing your market studies. I hope it's not because parking is driving the.
It's nothing to do with parking.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify that because, consistently, in our Del Webb communities, if you're looking for a move down buyer, we have a hard time selling units at this square footage. And that's a different market, different price point, typically retired nurses, teacher type of market for a Del Webb. So just, whatever market studies you're looking at, we find it's hard to get people to go into those smaller units. And so I'm sure you're looking at that further. And this probably has flexibility, instead of 9 1-bedrooms, you could probably go down to a couple if you change, right? It looks like you've got enough flexibility in the plan. So I just thought I'd mention that. And that's across the board in the Midwest, all the way from Minnesota to, we just grand opened one, Lincoln Prairie and Aurora. So, it's a little bit of a challenge on the smaller units. One other thing I'd just like us to think about is as a compensatory benefit, in addition to the parking and the streetscaping, that triangle piece, which we're looking at right now, I think we should really think as compensatory benefit. And kind of hopefully mirror what's going on across the street in front of Hometown, to have maybe like a knee wall sitting area or whatever they call it, the little bench area for sitting, and just kind of continue the activation across the street. Just as a thought.
We very much want that to happen.
Okay.
And we're graphically, this is just depicted as just kind of a blank space. I think it needs to be highly programmed. Like it's a small, it's 1,500 or whatever, 1,800 square feet or whatever it might be, but it's really important to the community at large and to this development. It sets a tone. So how we treat that architecturally from a landscape perspective, and how it gets activated by the community is something that we want to continue to talk about.
It
how
looks.
The retail reacts to it at the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a great opportunity to, take some of the people that may, just the overflow, more casual people, and really help break up the, large structure. I mean, it's great. It's a large structure. It gives us the opportunity to really make a significant impact downtown, but it's also a large structure, right? The other thing I thought about.
Questions only, Tina, at this point.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Have you thought about as part of the PD process, it's a little bit different because this is not an HOA, right? And so you don't have covenants that we could review. Would you be open to some sort of covenants related to the use of balconies and things? We do those with single-family rental communities that we develop. Just a thought for you to think about whether you'd be interested in some covenants on kind of what can go on, the balconies, so that's you know, on the, property. And then, and it's firmly, my other question was just last question, firmly apartments, not condos, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My only question, I'll wait till comments later.
You'll get another bite at the apple,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
promise.
The west side of Lincoln, that's not part of your streetscape, is that correct?
West side of Lincoln.
The west side of, no, it's not.
Okay,
No,
so we'll have to
that's-
think
that's
about
owned
that.
by the rail.
That's Metro or UP.
Well, the parking is?
Or is that
Parking
Village?
the parking is owned by Metra and the sidewalk. Isn't it on the west side of Lincoln? That's not Village of.
It's our parking.
Oh, it is your.
Yeah, the spaces there are Village Park. It's Village Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just wanna keep that in mind as
And
well.
then that southwest corner is part of the Streetscape Phase 5.
Right, okay, good. I'll keep my other stuff till later, thanks.
So, just a couple questions. Just because other people might be interested in this, the property is owned by RIC LLC, but then it says the Connie's property is Elm Street Pharmacy LLC.
Yeah,
Are we going to have one applicant, or?
yeah, it's gonna be one applicant. That's just simply under contract right now. It's still owned technically
Okay,
by the pharmacy owner, and you know, at some point we're
so
gonna close on
ultimately
that
it folds
once
into
that
one
happens.
applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
One
good,
parcel.
figured, all right. Then, John, the package showed, so on the setbacks of the fourth story on Lincoln, it showed two areas, David's rendering showed two areas where it was less than 10 feet. Obviously, one was over the resident entrance, I believe. But then on this rendering we're looking at,
Which one specifically?
I think the one that's on our, it's page
14.
page
14.
14. It looks like the fourth story is set back, but it's like a patio or something that is,
The fourth floor is set back 5 feet 2 inches.
okay, it is set back, so that's a
Yeah,
little
correct.
different than,
If you
Let's
look
see.
at page 9,
okay?
you'll see a better adaptation of that. It's almost like a balcony all the way around that wraps the floor,
Okay,
showing the setback.
got it. Okay, so some of the other, like on, in the packet that David sent out, so on this, Rob, it doesn't show, it's all different. Right, okay, so there is a setback. It's
Yes.
just-
Yes.
Okay, and then what about the other setback that's closer to the old Phototronics on the, you know, as you go down to the north on that?
On the corner?
It looked like David Schoen's rendering showed that bracket, a red bracket around it, where there wasn't a full 10-foot setback.
Are you talking at the gables
He had
right here?
it drawn in red.
He had it
The
drawn
one-
in red.
That slide that shows the variance, I think.
Yeah, exactly, the setback, thank you, Tina.
Oh, yeah.
The image that was showing the rectangle along Elm Street?
No,
On
it was
Lincoln.
an oval. You had it
Oh,
drawn
on-
in oval.
Yeah, the setback is in the C2 district. The building must be either at the property line or no farther back than 3 feet from the property line. So along Lincoln, the building is set back more than 3 feet, therefore they need an exception.
So the
Because our
code wants you to,
business-
the
Is that what was circled though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
the code wants you to go boundary, property line to property line
Okay.
in the
He
commercial
wants a
district.
triangulated point.
Okay, so the one setback was at the fourth level, and the other one was at the ground level?
Correct.
Correct.
With the circle, where the circle was?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the ground level.
Okay,
Her terraces on the fourth level are set back a little over 11 feet up there, as an example. So that setback works fine. It's the fact that the building doesn't come to a point like, Flatiron or something in New York City.
right.
We've chamfered that corner to open up that little triangulated park, let's call it.
Okay.
And we just think it's a more successful way to deal with it.
Softens up the corner.
Okay, good. You answered the question on the southwest side, or the northeast side on the height. Thank you. And I think that's all I have for now.
Questions, Kim?
Yeah, a couple. I think I'm looking through here. I don't see one of these nice elevations for the full south side. Is there one in here?
For the full, we don't have those developed yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then what I'm looking at, so that relates to sort of my
We don't
question.
have we don't have the south side, we don't have the east side, and we don't have the courtyard
Okay.
elevations drawn yet.
And the reason I was interested in the south side is that when I'm looking at page 11, tell me if I'm reading the diagram correctly. It looks like at the far, so let me get my direction, southeast part of the building, the fourth floor is not set back.
Correct.
Like
Yes.
okay.
Correct.
So I wondered if that's come into discussion when you discussed that elevation with your neighbors.
The
That's-
second, third, and fourth floor are all pulled back 10 feet.
They're all pulled
They're
back.
all pulled
Okay.
back.
Yeah,
So
that was. a
that's
little-
why we didn't pull the fourth back, because grade.
That would be a double pullback.
And at the ground plane, we're on the property line. And
Okay.
then on floors 2, 3, and 4, we're set back 10 feet.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
And we did that with the notion that 7-Eleven was going away from us at that point in time. So it has, I'll defer to the 7-Eleven residents, but it's, the impact that that portion of the building has on 7-Eleven is very minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Andy?
The only question I'd have, on that corner, the crossing across Lincoln, where you cross Elm, it's like at a weird angle. And in the last version of One Way Neck, we probably shouldn't speak about it, but the last version, we had made a bigger, I think, bump out there, which is something we're doing around the village anyway to calm traffic. And I'm wondering if, as we design our streetscape, it's something that I think we ought to think about. You could get an even bigger bump out there.
Sure.
Certainly something I would support.
On Lincoln?
Yeah, on that Lincoln corner.
Right.
Can
But
I
on
ask
that-
a question?
that
Did the
side,
previous
yeah.
applicant, they consumed more of the Lincoln right of way, didn't they?
Yeah.
Their site was pushed out beyond the property line into Lincoln because we have an extraordinary width there at the right of way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if we're not doing that, we're holding the original property.
That's right. And so that's they use that then to kind of straighten that out. But I think we could achieve that straightening that weird crossing out
Yep.
and get another benefit, which for you and for the village, which would be an even bigger corner. Because I don't know if you walk by Hometown any given day, it's insane. Even in the wintertime, people.
I was
might-
there yesterday,
Yeah.
and every single table outside was occupied in the rain.
Yeah.
Under the awning.
Yeah.
Everyone, I swear to God, at 9:30
Yeah.
when I left.
So if we can max that out, something to think about. Anyway.
Trustee Apatow?
Sure.
Questions?
Many of the questions were answered, so I appreciate it. I think overall, this shows that you guys do listen, and the team listens. I think some very positive additions, of course, with the parking on Lincoln, and the way the design now looks with Connie's, and it flows a lot better. I look at that. You answered a bunch of the height questions. Obviously, I still have concerns. I originally thought it was a peak, but it really is just the overall height of the building because it ends with a flat roof, no peaks at all. And I guess the other concern I have is I'm looking at the side view of this whole building. It is big, it is long, and I am concerned that it looks at the top floors. I know you're trying to get an effect or a look, but they're getting it looks pretty ominous with the kind of all the charcoal and black at the top and up the entire side. So it's just a design thing we just have to be mindful of to make sure it doesn't look industrial. I know what you're trying to go for, but I'm just concerned it might have the opposite effect. But overall, very positive of the direction you're going.
Okay. All right, I have one question. What is the dark gray material?
Stucco.
Okay.
And it's not our intention to make this an industrial box. It's going to be detailed in such a way. I think it will be a very elegant and graceful expression in this building, as a contrast to the brick and the white stucco and the stone and all the rest of it. And the reality is, no one's going to see that fourth floor from the street. You're going to see it when you're crossing the bridge in your car or walking, and you're going to see it for a moment when you're coming east to west up Elm. But beyond that, it's not going to be a part of our experience. Certainly walking on the street, you're really not going to see it.
Don't you have a lot of it on the Lincoln Avenue elevation, though?
We do, yeah, sure.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, coming across the bridge, you're going to see it, but from the pedestrian experience on the sidewalks, it's really going to go away. And I think the dark tone of the fourth floor, I think, is going to recede even more, rather than calling a tremendous amount of attention to it, with kind of a light and dark Tudor thing. I think this is, right now, I'm leaning toward this. I drove this, and we'll see how it goes. We'll develop it further, and we'll prove out that we think this is a good way to go.
Okay. All right, at this point, we'll ask you guys to sit down for a second, and we'll open this up for public comment. Would anybody from the audience like to speak on this matter? Come on up.
John Phelan from 711 Oak. Live there. I'm the president of the condo association. We like what we see, basically. It looks a lot better than some of the other things we've seen in previous years. As we have in the past, we've certainly asked the village to include an ordinance for the monitoring of vibration, airborne debris, and dust. We are very concerned. Our residents skew older. They're concerned about that sort of thing. I don't know what kind of materials are in those buildings that will come down, but I'm guessing perhaps there's asbestos somewhere, because they're probably old enough to have that, and we're concerned about that being in the air. Our driveway, the north edge of our driveway butts up right against the south face of the Fell building. When that building comes down, if that retaining wall isn't addressed, our driveway goes with it, and we won't be happy. But as I say, we met with John. We had a good conversation last Friday. We certainly appreciate them being sensitive to what the neighbors are asking for. We ask the council to be sensitive as well. Thanks.
Thanks. Frank, you want to say something?
Yes, Chris. Hi, I'm Frank Petrick. I live at 711 Oak. And at this point, I'm going to invite all of you at some point in the process before the demo starts to come up to our condo, especially Kim. I don't think you've been up there. Tina, I don't think you have, John. I don't think you have. So I think it would be good for you to come and get a bird's eye view of what's going on there, so you'll appreciate, because unless you get a drone, you can't really see what's going on up there. And John Phelan's right. We had a very positive talk with John Talty last Friday. I appreciate that quite a bit. And as somebody who's been, well, John said 16 years, I go back to Dave Feely's project, a little bit more than that. But as somebody who's been paying attention to construction in Winnetka for better part of 4 decades, I think this looks really good. I mean it sincerely. I can't really comment on the effect from the south side because I haven't seen any elevations. As far as with all respect to Mr. Talty, to John, living on the 4th floor, we will see the 4th floor, so it's not going to disappear for us. But I think the sentiment of it is a lot more considerate of the community than that monstrosity that's in Wilmette, that I think is really shadowed by the Cook County Correctional Facility. That's just a personal opinion. So we're looking forward to to working with these guys and working with you again, because the council protected us the last time around, and we really, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Frank. Would anybody else like to comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and then we'll bring it back up here for our additional comments and any other discussion we might have. Rob, are you ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you lead us off?
No, I'm just encouraged that we have, we've made comments and they've been listened to. I mean, that to me is what you can ask for, and kind of makes this either a great process or a very difficult one. The main things I had concerns about were some of what Tina had and some of what Bob had on direction of parking and how it could become a hornet's nest, and I think those are being addressed. And then the height, I think we're trying to keep it as tidy as we can. I think they're trying to make it look like it isn't as ominous. I just have some of the concerns about the intention of the material and the color at the top, and whether I can't quite visualize how much it will be seen or not seen, but I just don't want this, because it is such a big, long building, it can, have a great effect. And I just want to make sure it doesn't have the wrong effect.
Great.
But overall, I think it's the right direction.
Great. Okay, Andy, would you like to share a few?
Great work, guys. I think this is outstanding. I should have asked before, but when can you get started? I think, the height is right. I like the way you've broken up the horizontal and the vertical. I personally do like the gray. You've got a lot of glass, which is going to reflect the sky back. You see a lot of that kind of using that darker gray in Fulton Market with the historic buildings, and I think it's really effective. It kind of allows the other architecture to stand out a bit more. So I think that was really thoughtful. I like the way you move the parking, and the way you've programmed it even is really thoughtful and considerate of the neighbors. We've got residential closer to 711 Oak. As you get closer to my house, you've got the quieter commercial stuff. And then on that corner is where you've got the stuff that'll be a bit more lively. So I think that's really thoughtful. The way it steps back is great. So just outstanding. I'm not a design professional, so I have a lot of confidence in our DRB, and I know you'll have a good discussion with them. But man, if you could just hit the pedal and just go, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll echo these two gentlemen's thoughts. I too had my first reaction when I saw the gray charcoal for the resident entrance in the other area, not so much on the fourth floor, but for that entrance, just seemed a little heavy to me. But I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of thought behind it, and so I'll withhold any strong opinion one way or the other that that there is some thought behind why that's there. The other thing we just mentioned at the very beginning was public benefit and wanting some feedback on that. I'm not quite sure that I believe that a financial service firm brings a lot of foot traffic to town. So I think that's listed as one of the public benefits. I'm not asking anyone to tell us exactly what kind, but just in general, I don't see that as a lot of foot traffic. So just as we get farther down the road, that's something I guess I would think about, what we really do expect in total for public benefit. Thank you.
That's something. Bob.
I agree. I think this is a really nice design. I think it, in context, fits well with the location. Good thought, good response. Really appreciate it, both John Murphy and John Talty. Thank you. I think the DRB, as you know, John, they have some real talent on that commission, and so I look forward to some of those robust discussions on this, and maybe it just stays as it is, or maybe there's some improvements, but look forward to that for sure. I have sympathy, of course, for the 7-Eleven thoughts in terms of the construction process. I mean, this is enormous in a fairly tight area to them, to Elm Street, to other neighbors, and so on. And so I trust that working with David Schoen and the others, that will be thought through very carefully on how to mitigate to the extent possible the huge disruption that will occur. It will occur, we know that, but that will be thought through, of course. And then ultimately, just as the old one, Winnetka's versions and so on, I think there will be good thought process in how this building sort of, I always said, lives and breathes, how it works and, the rhythm of it and so on, and how it works in the neighborhood. So I think we'll be thinking more on that. But I agree with Andy that it sort of makes sense as it goes around the building from quiet to more active and so on. I think that's great. So I think that I think you have provided the answer here, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
All right. I too, the biggest change here is this. I think it's awesome that you picked up Connie's. I mean, that really helped the project a lot. And it's because of that you're able to keep all the traffic on the Lincoln as far as automobiles, which is nice. The special use comment about the medical and the financial offices, I think that's a good thing, because at least they're committing to having them in their building. And if we're worried about having other areas of town, we still have the overlay district other areas. And as far as the PUD, I'm assuming they're asking for that to be part of the PUD, that whoever comes in there doesn't have to come back to us. And that's how I think I would like to see that. The streetscape that's being done along Elm should be coordinated with our streetscape plan. Maybe one or two more islands or tree grates, things like that. The triangle corner that we've talked about, that could be that stone wall as part of the streetscape. But if that becomes a restaurant, outdoor seating is a big thing, and that's a great corner to have for outdoor seating. So that's just something to work on. The balconies, I agree that there should be some kind of a rule when you rent. You can't have grills and storage and bikes out there. Grills might be something you guys can decide on, but with grill becomes fire too. So the west side of Lincoln, I asked about that. We'll have to see how we do that as we go forward on different streetscapes. I have no issue with the height going from west to east. The only question I have there, as you're going down the hill, possibly the interior slabs can drop too, depending on tenant sizes, and you're seeing these get taller in some of those spaces. The pedestrian walkway off of Elm, maybe that walkway, you could have more glass on the tenants there. Again, not knowing what the tenants are, some glass there, maybe even window boxes with displays or something. And this is more a private question maybe for Peter, if we're going through the PUD process, we don't have to identify every variance, do we? We still do?
The exceptions we should identify.
We should,
in the
okay.
ordinance, yep.
Okay, so just working with David, make sure we don't miss any that might be required. But overall, it's a great plan. I love the architecture. Thanks.
Tina.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job. I think it's a challenge to get such a large building with the architectural articulation, and I think you've done it. And if my memory serves me right, this is substantially more fenestration than in any previous design that was approved. We almost had like just straight wall without windows. So I think the design is great. I'm going to leave it to the design professionals at the DRB about the gray. But I think it helps in a different way and without losing space, help break up a very large mass. So I appreciate that. I would just say two things about the special use. I personally would feel a little uncomfortable in wrapping the forever approval of the special use into the PUD. I think we would still have the process that they would have to individually come in, but I'll rely on Peter on that. But I don't have a problem giving the consistency and anchor tenant, and if we get a bank off one of the corners, on the other side of Elm and free up that space to activate that side of Elm, you know, it may be good to get a financial services tenant in this space. Two other things that I forgot to mention. Employee parking for the retail or the commercial tenants, I would assume would probably be in the village lot, not necessarily in the 38 spots, which I would like to keep open for, you know, other uses. And I think that's it, but otherwise, great job. Appreciate it.
Okay, I do have some comments. I can't help myself. And don't take this the wrong way, but I'm thinking hard about this building because it is such an important and prominent piece in our community. With respect to the height and the setbacks, I don't see a real issue with that at all. I mean, from my perspective, and remember, we're all speaking as individuals here, not as a voting group, so you're getting 7 different opinions. I'd like to see a little bit more work on that corner, on the Elm and Lincoln corner, you know, just from an architectural standpoint. It's just something that anchors the building and is more important than what you're doing as you move down the block in either direction. Maybe you do it with materials. I know it gets tough because you don't want to get too Disney with it, but I just feel like the corner might need something a little bit stronger architecturally to anchor that. Thank you for the drives on Lincoln. The thing I like about that is that you actually moved it well in, you know, towards the middle of the block and kept it away from the guys over at 7-Eleven, which was always a rough thing. And the fact that you can actually, all of your service is going to be inside on that 38 space level is awesome. That's just really good, because then you guys won't be dealing with the trucks and all that sort of stuff day in, day out. So I think they really came up with a very clever solution there. The commercial square footage. I'm just going to say it flat out. 20,000 feet for this building is too much, and your spaces are too deep. If you ever try to lease that to a retail tenant, you're going to suck wind because they're just too damn deep for good retail. Might work for some other commercial use, but I just think it's a lot of square footage to contribute to that sort of commercial space, especially at the rents that you guys are going to have to get to carry the load there. So something to think about. You know, you might net out a couple extra parking spaces and save yourself a lot of grief in the future. Just my way of thinking. Secondly, I would be really hard pressed to completely waive the overlay with respect to the main corner, the Elm Lincoln corner. I think if you look at the floor plan, those 4 bays up on the corner, you have like a short bay and then another bay. And if you were to take those 2 bays and then the 2 bays behind them, that would give you those 4 bays. Might make a nice restaurant space or something of that nature, which I think would activate the corner and really make a difference. And then, let's face it, your plaza could actually end up being more outdoor dining or something of that nature. And it would add a lot more atmosphere to the corner as well. So I'd be hard pressed to, with the rest of the space, I don't have a problem with it. If you've got tenants that are willing to pay that kind of rent and that kind of space, God love you, but I'd be a little nervous about it. The dark gray material, you guys got to think about it. I'm sure you'll hear about it at DRB too. I mean, that west-facing elevation just gets beat by the sun day in, day out. Well, we haven't seen the sun for 2 months now. So. But that is going to fade over time. So maybe it isn't stucco. Maybe it's a metal panel of some sort, or maybe it's one of those other architectural panels or something of that nature. Might get you the same look and might be a little bit more color fast than the stucco would be. And that residence entry, and John, you know this, that chunk needs work where the residence entry is. I mean, even if you look at this elevation that we have up there, you can see it just kind of, yeah, there's something wrong there, but.
We're just trying to get as much information on this.
I know, but I don't get a shot to tell you this anymore until you come back for final approval, so I gotta get it out now. I understand what you're doing there, but I just think something's missing in the execution there, and you guys will figure it out with DRB, and you'll come back with something beautiful. And that was the sum and substance of my comments for this evening. So, any other thoughts or? Great. Well, thank you for coming back.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah,
Chris,
Rob.
I did one more thing. First is that, and I know they talked about that walkway from the parking lot. It's one of those things where, if done thoughtfully, or the little extra care can actually be an addition versus something that's just a hangout place. Or I know you're thinking about that, but I really want you to think of how that can be given enough thought to really make it like almost a living space versus a pass through. And the other one is, the last thought is just what Andy was saying is, if we do get this going, how do we prevent these long gaps from getting this going?
I missed that.
The long gaps from what?
He wants to get the project.
From a time standpoint, how do we, if we're ready to go, how do we go with this?
Well, we have the streamlined process, so hopefully we won't have to worry about 50 meetings and
Yeah,
the
I'm not
like.
doing
So
that again.
Yeah.
it worked pretty good with the first project that came through, Rob. So I think we're onto something that actually works, and there's nothing to say
Yep.
we can't tweak it. But
Good.
and this is the first part, is you get to hear from us before you go anywhere else, and hopefully that helps you a little bit too. So, but thank you. This is a lot of work, and thank you for staying the course and sniffing out Connie's when the opportunity presented itself, and it definitely makes for a much better project overall. So,
Excuse me,
Go
because
ahead,
of Apatoff's comment, I got one more positive thing, I hope.
Sure.
That pedestrian walkway, possibly your actual enclosed retail space, maybe you take 10 or 15 more feet of their retail space and make it outdoor space, so you can have outdoor dining through that walkway, which is obviously everyone's trying to do that these days. It gives you more outdoor space, and then it's not such a corridor. It's more of a cafe type
Can I speak
place.
to that for 1
Sure.
second? So I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. I agree with what Rob has said as well. Again, that space really needs to be thoughtful. And the hope would be to turn storefronts down that space so it's activated and lit and alive. And I would ask any of you, if you spend any time up in Lake Forest. I was involved in the restoration and renovation of Market Square. And this was kind of born of that Market Square thought, where you slide behind buildings at Market Square in these pedestrian walkways to access and activate the alleys behind. So we carved through those buildings to get pedestrians walking. That's, even though it's a very different architecture, that's kind of the spirit of what this wants to be and the scale of what it wants to be. There's a really bad example of this in Glenview, on Glenview Road, west of Waukegan Road on the south side of the street, where there's this kind of archway that's 25 feet wide. It's just, it has no life, it has no meaning, and it's a waste of square footage. That's what we don't want to do. Market Square, Lake Forest is what we do want to do. So it's something that's very important as a part of the success of this.
Thanks.
So, thanks.
thanks, guys. Okay, well, that does it for the One Winnetka review, and 7-Eleven guys, just rest assured, we're gonna definitely be in touch and making sure that you guys are part of this process. You know, the last time around, we included all that language relative to protection, and certainly that's gonna carry forward into this development agreement as well. I can guarantee you that. So, all right, well, moving along here, new business, we have none. Appointments this week, we have none. Closed session, we have none. And Lucky 13 is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
There's a little delay, I think there's a little time delay.
Yeah, I think